Welcome back to Dice to Pixels. We've got episode 42, and tonight we are down a Chad, but we've got two special guests.
Oh, it's my turn now?
Yeah,
okay.
you can go ahead, Dan.
I'm Dan. I'm replacing Chad. I don't know how exciting Chad is, but I'll try and match up to that to some level.
You're already doing great.
Okay, good. I'm one of the co-founders of Odyssey Dice. Yeah, you guys asked us out to come out. I was actually pretty excited to have a chance to come out and talk.
Yeah, and we're super excited to have you both. We'll get into the details of that in just a second, but first...
I'm Jason. I'm not a co-founder, but I've been with Odyssey Dice from the beginning of production. And this is
great.
This is the first time anyone's really seen me on camera before.
Oh,
he's always the
special.
behind the camera guy.
No one even knows I exist.
Do me a favor, just bring the mic just a little closer to you.
Sure.
That's perfect. So Sarah found you guys when you did your Kickstarter, and all three of us were immediately like, we need to have these.
Glad to know all the marketing money went to actually worked.
At least some of it did.
At least some of it did.
So we found you guys, and then I guess on the last update, I said like, hey, shot in the dark, but if you guys want to come on the podcast. And we're super excited that you're here because, and it looks like we actually get to see some in person.
Yeah, I brought some so you guys don't think they're fake. You know, I got real ones right here.
Awesome. We're excited to see them. I think probably start at the beginning. Like, I think we're both curious. How did you guys start?
So I actually started with the only other person missing is Will. He's the other co-founder. We met through, we both went to McMaster University. And we actually, by chance, were matched up in the same D&D group through like a club. There was a club that did like a matchmaking system.
Very cool.
So we ended up playing in this group, and players changed around for the first few months, but then eventually we hit the group that we have now, and this was 5 years ago. So we still have the same group.
Wow.
So
nice.
That's impressive.
We finished our first campaign. I was the DM, and I had no idea what I was doing. Still don't really have an idea what I'm doing.
Isn't that always the way?
And then our first campaign finished after 4 years. So it was actually a really, really long time. And we had, it was so long to the point where one of our players who was at Mac went back to Ottawa. And then we bought him a secret train ticket back for the last session. And everyone was really happy and stuff. And
nice.
And when we finished, Will and I were just talking in the car. If there's we were just talking. It was in an IKEA parking lot. I remember exactly where we were. And we were just we really like D&D. We met a very good core, for me, a very important group of friends and people that I think I'll have for
sure.
Hopefully the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
And we're why not try and do something in this space? And so then we started talking okay, what could we do? We're why don't we try and make dice? Neither of us knew how to make dice.
Yeah.
Never made a dice in our lives. We're everyone uses dice. Everyone who plays D&D will use
That's
dice.
Awesome.
And that was literally all it took to start it.
That's amazing. So how many years ago was that at this point? Give or take.
Once we launched the Kickstarter, we were doing it for a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So it was a year and a half before we launched anything. It took us 6 months to basically even learn how to make any sort of dice that doesn't look completely terrible.
Sure.
I remember our first ones came out and we pulled them out and at the time we we're oh my god, we're artists, this is beautiful. But now we look back, we're man, they were so ugly. How did we even think
do you guys still have your first sets?
I have pictures of them.
Okay.
And I can send them over later.
I'd love to see them.
Yeah.
We got them. They're they're round edge ones. One of them looks one of my friends described it. He said it looks like mold that grows in a fish tank.
Good.
There's a big bucket we have in our studio of just old dice, bad dice.
Hundreds.
Yeah. I've pulled one out before. I'm assuming it's an old one. It's a kind of rounded one with a wilted dandelion in it.
Nice. I gotta say, I'm actually impressed. I figured you were gonna tell me you'd been at it for years because so far I haven't seen them, so I'm going on photos, but they're gorgeous. They're way better than I would have expected for a year and change.
And you know what? I think us going straight, a lot of the other dice makers in the space would sell on a Etsy or through their own store pages. And in a way, I think it gave us like a benefit, and it had its own like drawbacks for launching just to Kickstarter, which I guess we'll get into a little later. But yeah, no, we launched first through Kickstarter, because like, you know, we were like, you know, we want to try and like blow up on it, like go as fast as we can.
And I mean the campaign went pretty well. I mean, for a first campaign, I know how hard it is to market a Kickstarter, so.
Yeah, I know the first one, I remember like leading up we called it our doomsday 24 hours leading up to it. Like I was barely sleeping. He was barely sleeping. I had this like list, and I was working cause I was still in school, but I was on co-op, which was allowing me to like actually work on dice cause it was a work from home job. So,
okay. Yeah.
But, and I remember I was at work when we launched. And like the whole day I was like shaking. I was like freaking out. Will was the one who had to actually click launch. I was like refreshing my phone. And then like, that day I was like just incredibly stressed. I don't even remember what I did at work. My coworker walked out. She's like, you look really like unwell. I'm like, yeah.
I am deeply unwell. That's super cool. Yeah. That's amazing. So I guess we're both super interested in the process. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit. Like, I have infinite interest in this. So, like, I'm curious, like, what kind of process do you use? Like, do you pull a vacuum on the resin before you mold, or during the mold, or like, how do you do it? I'm super curious.
Process when we started still changes. Like to this day, it still changes. Like they try different things. I try different things.
The problem is every design has different issues, so every single design requires different sort of orders and processes.
But yeah, the general process is we have like these big silicone molds, which we showed off in like a Kickstarter. They're like these big pancakes basically.
I saw
and each one you can do like 30-40 dice in. We have a 2-part resin. We used to do a vacuum chamber and then we stopped. So what happens is we mix our different components. Sometimes different dice have like different colors, so we need to mix them into separate containers. And like Jason said, like every design is different, right? Like you can't do.
Well, I mean, I imagine the Threads of Fate is very different than anything else. Like that's got to be hard to suspend it in the resin and everything.
The string's actually really nice to work with, because like it's generally on its own, it wants to like push out to the edges.
So it like
it does it on its own. It's a little magical on its own.
That's nice. But
good. Like other ones, like Dawn and Dusk, which are two of our. Dusk was like one of our best sellers. I think it was in the top 3.
That was my pick. Yeah.
That one's really difficult. So that one.
Well, the glitter, I imagine.
It's the cloud that you see in it. Like that it looks like a cloud. Anyways, is what we were going for. Maybe you guys.
No, it does. It looks great.
That's actually it's soap. It's microwave soap. Yeah, so like when you microwave a bar of soap,
you get the foam.
And you can break it.
Oh, that's super cool.
That's clever.
But when that sits in a dice, you won't know if it makes an air bubble until like after it's pressurized. So we put it in a pressure pot and we pressurize the pot, right? But sometimes like those inserts, like soap, what happens is they'll just absorb a little bit more resin, or like a little bit of resin. Like it literally takes just a drop of resin to move because of that insert, and then when you take it over, even if it's a small bubble on the top, that dice is like thrown out.
I can imagine. Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah.
I don't know if you had more you wanted to say on the process. I feel like I'm hogging all the spotlight.
Well, like even like I guess with the soap, but for other stuff where like we insert resin into the middle of it to give it a different like cloudy look.
Right.
It depending on the temperature of the resin when you're casting, it just sinks or floats. Like right now we're dealing with that issue.
Sure.
I think we figured that out.
Yeah, we figured it out pretty easy. We kept trying to do like different temperatures, and because like right now we have issues where you also make dice with different materials. It's all resin. Yeah. But what you could put in it, it could be like a dye, like a So Strong dye, or like an alcohol ink. Yeah. And like an alcohol ink will actually make it less dense.
Sure.
So it floats.
Right.
So now you have to think about like
cool that one a little bit to get it right.
We tried a lot of complex solutions, and then it was the easiest. We just flipped the mold upside down.
Love it. Love simple solutions.
So
that's awesome.
So that's like the process for making the resin dice, but
don't worry about Scooter.
When I first started, these guys are having problems with like their dice masters. So like we're starting we've now decided, like, we bought a 3D printer, like a resin printer,
Okay.
and we're
Yep.
just decided we're gonna make our own masters from now on.
Oh, that's super
for
cool.
the future. Yeah.
There was a time actually just before we found your Kickstarter. Sarah and I was like, Sarah, I'm gonna buy a pressure pot and try making dice, which someday I may still do. But I wondered about that because I have small format resin printer, and I was like, I bet that'd work.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, so like we had a lot of like our biggest pain was our dice masters at the start.
I believe it.
Because at the time we were working with someone external, and they were having a lot of issues. It doesn't matter who they were, but they were having a lot of issues getting our
You can
dice
call them out if you
masters.
want.
Nah, but they were having a lot of issues getting those dice masters to us. So we placed the order. I remember like a couple months before we launched.
Yeah.
And we didn't get them until a month and a half after we finished.
Isn't that always the way?
Right.
Yeah.
And they kept saying, and so like after that experience, like we just realized like, it just makes way more sense to just bring it in-house because there's still a learning process. You can't like even with Dice Masters. So now we are learning how to just do the masters ourselves. And it's a good process. In the future, I think it's something that like not only can we make it for ourselves, but maybe hopefully we're actually aiming to make it for others too.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, vertical integration never hurts, right? Reducing the number of people you depend on is never a bad thing, or rarely a bad thing. So I'm curious, the masters, I assume you can only use them once, a couple of times? How does that work?
So we make the molds using the masters, but they're only just sitting in silicone, and then you take them out, so they really aren't damaged if you don't if you take care of them.
I see. So you're creating a silicone negative of the master and then creating dice. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that from because you had they looked like gray dice on the.
Yes. One of the updates I was showing off some of the bad ones we were getting over and over again.
Yeah, right.
And it's funny because our last order with them before we went over, they sent us over like a barrel. It was really funny. They sent us over like our last set of masters we would need from them, and we got like the barrel. The barrel we sell on ours. Yeah. It was. Like it's like the size of my pinky nail, and I just like couldn't understand like why they would send it that size. And like we were looking at it, and we're like, it was so funny that we were like, you can make micro dice. Like
you could.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Try getting the foam to work in those ones. Eh? Yeah, that's super awesome. So I don't know, Sarah, what do you want to know next?
Yeah. So in terms of like, I guess, on your own before a Kickstarter, you're making like smaller batches for yourself versus now. Is there like an entirely different process with small versus larger batch making?
Yeah, so that was definitely, in my opinion, one of the biggest drawbacks of never selling before a Kickstarter. Because when we started, you're working with these molds that are like this big, one set. Yeah. And there was a lot of things that like, this didn't cross our minds like at the time, right? Where we made a set, we're like, okay, you know what? This one's really, really nice. Like we really like this one. Let's add this one to the lineup. Right. But then when you go to like mass production, there's just like, like the issues became infinite is what it felt like.
I believe that.
I think it's because like in the small molds, like you can have small problems. Like you can kind of bend a little bit. It's not a big issue. Once it's like a bigger mold, all of that gets amplified.
Sure, yeah. Any deflection, yeah.
Like
sure.
Now, some of the issues we've managed to put behind us, like some of the ones we faced early on. For example, one was we would keep taking the lids off, and all the numbers on the top would be like just ever so slightly shifted. Some of them really shifted, but they aren't centered. We're looking at the lid; the numbers are centered on the lid. We're sitting there, we're thinking
pressure or something,
and
is
then it's like
it.
It's something as small as when we put it in the pot, because the bigger molds, right? If they curl even like slightly, because a pot is round at the bottom. Yeah. So if they like, so we put it in and we see like they curl up like literally just a couple millimeters, and then that's it. That's all it takes because of the size.
I believe it.
And other issues is like we never had to think about like a skirt. Like when you take off the lid. There's a skirt of resin. Yeah. And on a small mold, it's like paper thin, like thinner than paper, like it rips up. But on these big molds, when we started, they were like so thick that you literally cannot. When you try to take the dice out, you get the whole thing out at once on this big like resin sheet.
Oh, that can be a special Kickstarter thing, uncut dice.
I suggested that too. It's just like a huge one piece.
That'd be kind of
that would actually be fun. Yeah.
It's like we should make a clock out of this or something.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Okay.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go. So was just thinking of a question. So the offerings that you have, do you regret any in particular, including or?
Yeah, I do. I don't know if I'll upset the fans of those designs, but
Well, there's difficult in production versus like don't like the look of it, right?
I like, actually, funny enough, our best seller is Blood in the Water.
Oh, yeah?
When Will made that one, and when we first made it, I said, I hate it. I said, I don't want it. I don't want to see it. I'm like, I think it's really ugly.
Yeah.
And then Will was like, no, it's like, I like it. And I'm like, you're wrong. Like, it's okay to be wrong. And
I think those are the ones that Chad chose.
I think so.
he was really at it. He shows it to all our friends. Everyone's like, I like it. Oh, okay, whatever. You guys can have it. And then that ended up being one of our best sellers. But I think I regret, if I had to say my number one, like the one we haven't started yet, I'm probably the most scared of, is a Withered Rose.
Oh,
because those roses were having a difficulty sourcing a consistent size of rose. You know, everything you get is a bigger, smaller. Some of them don't fit. Some of them are too small to just put one in.
Yeah.
And we're still working on it. We're talking to like different suppliers and stuff. And
the
rose industry is really mean. Like you would be surprised. Like it's very cutthroat.
That doesn't actually surprise me. I always figured they were jerks.
So they're like actual real roses?
They're dried tea roses. Yeah, they're real roses.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to find like a consistent. So because like flowers don't all grow the same size, but
for sure, yeah.
Like right now, the ones we get, the variations are crazy. Some are like this big, some are like so big they can't even fit in the D20. Like
not helpful. Yeah. That I imagine that's a huge pain. Yeah. Anything you gotta float in the middle, especially anything organic, is.
The goal is like you want like an insert that like is just the right size where you like put it in and it gets suspended up against the sides.
Right.
But not all of them can do that very easily. The nice thing with flowers is that they naturally float most of the time. Like they don't sink. Like we've tried other flower dice in the past, and like the one issue we didn't have with flowers is they naturally will just sort of like float, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
I think I know what our favorite dice to make are.
Yeah, we know our favorite designs.
Which one's that?
Our favorite's Tempest.
That's my second favorite, I think, in terms of look.
I think it looks great and it's pretty easy to make. It gave us the least amount of problems.
Yeah, we did like every Tempest. We cast it all in like 2-3 days, which were like,
oh wow.
There was a good. It becomes. It's like a mental thing too, right? When you're like doing these runs, like when we go in and do a run, it's like 3-4 hours of casting.
Sure.
And
mask on.
Yeah, mask on, and you're in the cold, and but then the next day when you pull it out and you throwing out 200 dice because usually when there's an issue, it's consistent throughout the run, unless it's like sometimes you get lucky if it's I have 2 issues: technical issues, design issues.
Right.
If it's a technical issue, sometimes it'll only happen to some molds, like shifted faces only on a few dice in a specific mold. But if it's a design issue, like something floats, that'll usually be every single dice in that run.
Yeah.
So then you just spend like the last 3-4 hours of casting you did yesterday. Then the next day you're throwing it all out. So it becomes like hard at times to like keep that, like you have to like keep going, you have to be
Well, I was gonna ask, that was sort of my heavy hitting question. Do you hate it yet?
I'll let you want to go first.
This has been, I think, the busiest time of my life.
Yeah.
It's been pretty fun the entire time.
Yeah. Are you gonna do more?
We want to. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Like,
okay, that's good.
It can get demoralizing. Like for example, Will and I, since we've started to now, we've not paid ourselves. Like we have stuff in the bank, but like we said, until the orders are out, we don't want to, right? Yeah. And so like at times that can be like, it can be like hard, right? It can be like hard to keep doing it every day, but we enjoy it, and I can see how much the process has improved. I just and obviously there's times where you'll go like, oh, I wish I knew about these manufacturing problems beforehand. But like now that we're learning, I think like the next project, whatever it may be, I definitely know, I can say like with confidence, I think it'll be much smoother. And the thing we want to do once we're done production too is we want to just spend like an extra few weeks before the next thing to just like really focus on the production process, because to our surprise, when we got in the space, we already knew it was a lot of manufacturing, like not actually like here. Most of the manufacturing is like in China. Like even some of the biggest like handcrafted dice people like in the industry, and I can't name names here, but even though we thought they were here, once we started talking, we get into contact with their owners, and then we find out even they, the dice creator we actually looked up to the most, we always thought they were like geniuses. We were like, oh my God, their dice are so good. They end up actually not making their dice.
You can tell us who it is off camera. I think I know who it is.
Yeah, I have suspicions too.
That's I mean, it's awesome that you guys are making them locally. Like that's super great.
Yeah, we want to try. We definitely want to do more. We want to expand. We have a couple projects that we are already like working on, but the problem is because we're late, we don't want to commit too much to it, because then it feels like and you also can't like really like do anything with it until your Kickstarter's out the door, right? Because you don't want to start talking about your next thing and then your first one's not even done, right? But
that's always a tricky one. A lot of people don't appreciate that from a business perspective. It's like, well, you really want that lead time where it's like, we want to start focusing on the next thing. Yeah. But that's hard, because a lot of people are like, no, where's my dice? And it's like, well, we're almost done with that. We need to work on the next thing. So
I think we've been lucky so far. Like every update I post where I say like, hey, it's going to be late, I get scared. But so far everyone has been pretty like kind and courteous. And
well, you guys are also, I mean, as far as Kickstarter goes, you guys are barely late. I mean, it's only a few months late at this point. Like
2 months. Yeah.
I ordered a nomadic backpack, and these guys, like, they've been selling backpacks and stuff for years. They were like 8 months late. So you guys aren't even late yet by my standards.
I got barbell clips and they were 1.5 years late.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if you guys have seen the Wondrous Items Kickstarter. It was like this Kickstarter with like magic item cards. Like I backed that one, and we're like 1.5 years, 2 years in.
Yeah.
I felt like a charging brick, and like it showed up 2 years later, and I forgot I even ordered it.
Yeah, I did that with it was sort of a Raspberry Pi sort of thing, and it was like, oh, they shipped it. That's nice.
I think it was like just the experience of like, we wanted to like in 2022 we already wanted to have launched the next thing in 2023. So that's a hard experience, because like you're just like delaying everything that you thought you would already be working on.
For sure. Yeah. I totally understand.
But what's really nice, as like from the consumer side of things, is the communication, because you guys have been so open about it.
I was gonna say, you guys have been doing a great job of keeping everybody up to date.
Like I think I got it from like my dad used to run his own like little food shop, and so like he always just said, you just don't lie to him, like
right,
because like there's no point, there's no gain in like trying to cover it up. And then later in the road, if you're covering it up and then they find out, then because like for us, like we want our brand to be something that like goes long term, like we don't want to just do one Kickstarter.
Yeah. Which is great. Yeah. That's actually something I was wondering. I wasn't sure if you guys would have put any thought into it yet, but do you think you'll stick with Kickstarter for the foreseeable future, or
for the next few at least.
Yeah, we think for the next couple, just until we can grow to like a size where we're confident with like being able to just launch through ourselves. Now, this is to say, like, we're going to start experimenting once we're done the Kickstarter. We're going to do like small dice drops.
Oh yeah.
Just through our website and advertise it through our social media pages. Also, social media is changing like a lot, right? Like Twitter changed a lot recently, and
we're doing some re-strategizing.
Yes.
Because when you look at like the numbers, but like we're gonna do Kickstarter for the next few projects, but we're going to try and do some small things in between to see how it works. But
that's a good way to go.
Yeah, obviously, ideally you want to get off Kickstarter in the end, because like they take 5% and then you lose another 3% to backer kit, and then 2% to Stripe. So you lose like 10% total on any project you launch through Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Unless you're Wormwood.
Yeah, we've shout out Wormwood a couple times.
Yes. I've seen those episodes.
Yeah, they're I don't know why they're still on Kickstarter. It's weird.
I agree. I always say the same thing. Like, I don't understand. They're so big. It's like, why even bother?
Doesn't make any sense.
Nope.
So I think at this point, if you want to show us a dice or two,
you guys the dice or two. I don't know. I don't know what he brought. He brought them, so it's a surprise to me.
I think I want to
pack them. So these are the ones you've seen the photos of.
Yeah, these are the photo ones. So the ones you guys will be getting are actually about 20% bigger.
Okay.
Because
All right.
we bought a set of Dispel dice, and we said, you know what, ours look kind of small. Let's make them bigger. And that's what we did. I mean, here's the Dusk, so hopefully it lives up to what you saw in the pictures. I think that's the one you said you bought, right?
I can tell. Yeah, I can tell from here it does.
All of these were made in like a small batch.
Yeah, and some of them have a little because these are the ones we took for pictures. I like that they brought these ones. We would actually hide the defects on some of them because you can't see them on pictures.
Yeah,
of course.
So like, you got little roses budding out on some of them. But
yeah, you never need to be 100% on photos. So what I will say, especially about the Dusk there, and I wondered about this. One of the things that happens with any sort of dice that you're trying to take photos of, you've got to flood light like crazy, and so it makes certain aspects of the dice stand out more, and it doesn't necessarily live up to, like, you'll see two pictures of the dice and they won't necessarily look the same. Those are beautiful.
Yeah, we tried really hard. Like I did all the picture editing beforehand, and I would basically have the mindset of minimal editing. Like we wanted to try and the only things I would maybe do is if I saw the inking and the number was missing some paint, I would I'd repaint it with the computer. But no, that was a big thing for us too, because we did a lot of research and saw what people disliked and liked and stuff. So the one thing we said, hey, going into this, the one thing we should try and do is keep our photo editing minimal.
Yeah.
And I think it paid off because I think they look nice in person.
Yeah, I mean they look every bit as nice as they do on your photo sets on Instagram for sure.
Yeah.
If anything, they look nicer in person because you get all of the subtleties. Like just being able to rotate that in my hand
you
is
get the sparkle.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for.
And I always had I'm always my own harshest critic. So if I say, you know what, these look good to me, I think that to others they will like it a lot more than I do.
That's always the case. Yeah, I'm the same way with anything I make.
We disagree on so many different things, but we know it's good when both of us agree. And we're then I think everyone's gonna like this.
Right, of course.
Us two in specific.
Yeah.
Will's always the middleman. Me and him, we were fighting all the time.
Yeah, we run into that. Sarah and I have fairly similar game tastes, and Chad and I have some games. So whenever all three of us like it, it's oh, that's a banger. Everybody's gonna love that.
Yeah.
But no, those are awesome.
So these are the picture dice. I brought some production dice. They're not finished. They're not sanded. They're not inked.
All right.
These ones are actually the ones that have
defects.
Okay.
We just wanted to show what kind of issues we've had. So this one is that one.
Everything floated to the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Still
super nice though. The shape and everything's still really nice.
So that one.
So we have I know it's hard to get on the cameras. They're so tiny.
Well, we can. What we can do is if we want to, after we're done filming, I can snap a couple of quick photos and just overlay them.
So that one is land and sea, which are right here. It's not even sinking. The white flipped with the blue for some reason. We don't know why. So
you can almost see the little trail where it broke through there. Yeah.
We've ironed those issues out now, but.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie though.
It still looks really cool.
It still looks really good.
So with rejects like those, would you ever consider selling them as seconds or?
We were talking. We think we would never sell one with a air bubble or a missing corner because I think it goes against we're trying really hard to figure out what kind of brand we want, but we were thinking of gacha bags. We were thinking of reject dice gacha bags for the ones with minor issues or a shifted face or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go, is just the it's a mystery, because that way nobody's expecting anything. They're just expecting some dice. Because I know some manufacturers do struggle with that, where they're we don't want people to think they're gonna get the right dice, and then and even if somebody's buying a defect, there's always that maybe I'll get ones that are perfect. It's well, you won't.
Now these ones, they're not finished either, but they're further along than these. They're they're ones we haven't rejected.
These look like they have.
So these are good. These have been sanded, and so the next steps for them would be that they need to be inked and polished. So these will go to a customer. I don't know who, but someone's gonna get these.
So those are
dice.
Tempest. Those are the ones we said we really like to make.
Well, whoever's getting them, you're getting some very nice
Yeah.
dice.
Well, it's been a fun experience.
It's
you know?
okay. I think I still like the Dusk more.
It's funny. Our D&D group, they were like, when the Kickstarter launch, they're like, so we don't have to, you guys are just always gonna have dice around, right? We don't need to get. And we were like, no, we're gonna make sure to put them all away, you know.
Yeah,
I
right.
noticed some of them got missing.
So actually, one thing that I will say, the box is
Yeah.
really, really nice.
I was
Yeah,
thinking the same.
Our box was a lot of work to. It's a little flap there.
There we go. I was
Our
grabbing the wrong
box was a
spot.
lot of iterations. Our box actually there was a funny story where we got our first prototype, because the box we don't make, obviously. We
No,
can't
of
make
course
that. But we got our first one, and Will was the one who like approves he was approving the proofs.
Yeah.
And in the proof, he saw that this box was white, but he thought that was just on the computer. And he's like, I remember I was sitting across from him, but I wasn't looking. I was in a different room, but I could hear him. He's like, I'm just going to approve this if this is good with you. I'm like, sure, if you're saying it's good, I'm good
Yeah.
with it. And a few weeks later, now the first prototype cost $1,500 for a box.
Yeah.
Because they needed to make the stamp for it and
I was
everything.
gonna say,
right?
yeah. With any printing, usually one isn't that much
Yeah.
more expensive than
And the first one comes, and it's white, and I'm like, Will, why is it white? And then he goes to the proof. He's like, I have no clue. He looked at the proof. I'm like, well, Will, it's white right here. And he's like, I thought that's just a preview thing.
No.
And then I end up on the phone like with our supplier. I was like begging. I was like, listen. I was throwing him under the bus. I was like, listen. Sometimes he just doesn't like looking with his eyes. And I really need a black one. And we managed to work it out. But no, our packaging. There's a few more things that we'll be laying on top.
Sure.
We have like an envelope that will have some goodies that will lay on top. We even went through the another. Now that I regret it now, but I think it'll be very cool. For this one is like the envelope will be like sealed with a wax seal, like a handmade wax seal. But unfortunately, we have to make every wax seal. There was the option of we could buy 5 pounds of bulk wax and melt it and seal, or we could just get they'll give them our picture. They'll make wax stickers for us.
Right.
For some reason, we chose to do the big bulk, give us because we wanted the handmade feel.
Yeah.
No, but like we did so like the art even on the front, like so all of our dice we wanted to be tied to like a moment in our D&D campaign. So like this one's actually themed around one of our players who was like a Shadar-kai rogue.
Okay.
Okay, and she was like all for the Raven Queen. So like that was the inspiration for these ones actually. And like all the dice on the website that have a little description, even though we think it's mostly just for us because I don't think many people read them, but that was the inspiration. So this art piece was actually from one of their favorite combat session, like one of their favorite combats from the campaign. And
so can you tell us about the
yeah,
campaign?
so it's they were all up on the city. They were going through I do like a homebrew world because I think it's fun. And so essentially they were trying to get a powerful artifact, classic D&D. And when they did it, the party actually split. And so one half accidentally awakened this like slumbering titan, while the other half was being warned about a slumbering titan. And it ended up with it climbing up these massive chains to this floating city. They really liked it. It was a cool moment. So we said, let's do that. So like even in our packaging, when you open it, there's a letter from the NPC.
Okay.
That's asking for like your help. Like that was like we're trying to.
That's super fun.
So like
That's
we tried. It was a lot of different iteration, but we think in the end like it'll be a packaging that people will be happy with. Everyone gets a free little dice pouch too with it.
Cool.
So in case you don't want to carry around a box, you can just put them in a pouch. It'll fit the whole set. It can fit 2 sets.
Nice. That's super great.
The box itself is great too. Like just with all of your rejects there, just tossing them in. Like even
That's right. Toss your dice rejects in there.
Hey, look.
No, that's super cool. That's awesome. I was wondering about the imagery because I was like, that looks very like Dungeons and Dragons epic combat, but I wasn't sure if that was just we just chose some art. It's super cool to know that that actually came from a campaign.
Yeah, no, and it was funny because this is actually the first art piece we tried. We learned a lesson.
That's my phone.
We tried to budget our art because we wanted our own art piece.
Yeah.
But the first one, we're like, what if we only spend like, I don't know, like $50?
Oh,
Maybe we'll get something good. and we hire someone, not to their fault. I don't blame the artists,
yeah.
but they made something that we got. We're like, you can't put this on the box.
Yeah. It's sometimes you'll get something where somebody doesn't know their worth, but art's expensive, people.
And it should be.
It is.
Also fair.
Yeah. No, our artist was really good. We liked working with both the artists were really good. Even the one we didn't use, he was still very good throughout the process.
That's
and
great.
Everything. But no, it's a big learning curve. It was like a lot of steps to get here, and it still feels like we're learning. It's just with the added stress of every day we're learning, we're a little later than we want to be,
Well, I can't speak for everyone who backed the campaign, but as far as I'm concerned, until you're 6 months past your due date on Kickstarter, you're not even late. So I don't think you have too much to worry about on that front. I'm curious. So you guys moved recently.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Into was it like a deliberate thing? Was it in reaction? I'm curious, like, are you in a better space now? Is this what you wanted to be?
So it was a forced move.
Yeah.
Our landlord wanted the space to live in. Housing situation.
Yeah.
So now we are actually split between Oakville and Hamilton. But the move did take up a little bit more time than we wanted.
Yeah.
But now everything I think actually works better. In Oakville, they get to actually work inside now, and before we were in a big empty garage.
Well, I wondered when you said it was cold. I'm like, you must be doing it in a garage.
Yeah. But now we're in an actual, like, basically a whole few rooms of a whole floor of a house, basically.
That's good.
And then the Hamilton space that we're also producing out of, also like inside now, and it's
awesome.
So
I bet that makes it easier to get consistency.
Yeah. So in the garage, like you guys were testing making dice in the summer, but we started production in the winter.
Yeah.
So any problem you had in the summer with temperature is completely different in the winter when it's cold. And so like to make it as consistent as possible, we had a cooler in the garage that we put like hot water in.
Sure.
Preheated the resin to get it to good temperature, and then started we have to do it super fast or else it cools down.
Yeah. Well, the things you got to do, right?
You would not believe some of the DIY we've had to do.
Dice makers in Canada.
I bet I would believe it. Yeah, we're no strangers to DIY.
Yeah.
No, that's super great. So, is there anything I don't want to push, but is there anything you can share about these next projects?
More dice projects.
Okay.
That's a given.
Yeah, well, that's good.
That's
I was hoping
we'd be leveling up.
We're leveling up the dice.
All right.
We have I mean, I guess I could say what type of dice, right?
Only if you're comfortable.
Yeah,
Don't
we're working on a liquid core for the next one.
Oh, love it.
I'm excited already.
We also are working on regular dice because honestly, I think regular dice are also fun, and they're also like cheaper to produce for us, so they're cheaper to sell for us too.
For sure. Pushing for chunks. I don't know.
Like big ones.
Yeah.
We're working on.
I don't know if we'll get those, but I've been pushing for it.
Yeah, we'll probably end up doing chunks too, and then we have one. We call it like our end game project.
Okay.
That one I have to be a little bit more secretive, but that one, I don't know. I don't want to sound like too like crazy, but like we actually think it'll be a change. It could change like the way that like people will look at like buying dice is the goal. And that one's a little more on the technical side, so it's actually a lot more.
It'll take a while.
It's going to take a while to develop it.
But before that, we might also have we might not just stay doing dice either.
Yeah, we're looking. We don't want to just stay as dice.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at different possible, so like journals or dice boxes. Dice boxes sort of feels like it makes the most sense to transition into after this. Yeah. At one point I said like I was making dumb statements like I want to be Canadian Wormwood, but now I'm like, you know what, maybe not that much.
Well, especially not now.
No. Yeah.
Well, besides, if you're going to be Canadian Wormwood, you've got to be like at least a year and a half late on your Kickstarter. So.
Yeah.
No, but
One day.
Yeah, no, it's been there's a few ideas. The biggest thing that's stopping us is, like I mentioned earlier, is like because we're late, we don't want to put too many resources to them.
Yeah,
so right now they're all sort of like we have the ideas and they're like in that prototyping stage, but it's like we don't know how to really balance it to to push them further right now. Without the only way to do that would be sacrifice time on production for the first one.
Sure.
And I mean, the ultimate goal is we think like a couple more projects we'll be able to hire like a full-time employee, and that would help a lot, right?
Yeah.
Because then right now it's everything that needs to get done. It's the three of us having to do it, right? But even having someone being able to help would help us launch more projects out the door. Yeah.
That's the anytime you can get to actually having someone. I'm pretty sure it's my phone.
No, that one was
totally my fault. We're super professional.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, anytime you can get people working on it full time it's not you.
In the update video, when we said we were like all hands on deck now to get like production running, like that wasn't like just the statement. Like before that, we were iterating like our production mold making steps, making new dice, trying like new stuff. But now, ever since then, like we've only been trying to produce dice because we feel bad being late.
Yeah, we originally were planning on launching like vlog style content regularly, but then she started filming it, and like we started filming shorts and stuff, and then we realized like, my god, like this takes so much time that we don't have. So we actually put a little bit of a pause, like he said. Like we said, we're just gonna focus on making sure production gets good, because even that, like it's a lot of steps. And like it's funny because like we're trying to think of new ways to speed up the process that others haven't needed to because their production is overseas. So I actually had an interesting email where I asked one of the bigger dice makers, I'm like, well, how do you guys right now what we're experimenting with, we're looking at different methods to essentially, right now when you get a dice, you ink it, you polish it, and then polishing is not a manual process. You put it in a big tumbler and leave it for
it's same as
overnight,
like gemstone tumbler. And
then you ink it and then you wipe it, and those two last steps, inking and then cleaning, are very time consuming,
especially for a D20.
Especially for a D20,
20 different faces.
I suppose.
And so like I'm like, well, someone's gotta have a solution. So I started asking her, and I know Chessex has a solution, and we managed to get a little bit of info, so we're trying to see if we can copy them a little.
Right.
But I started asking like other big dice makers, and I'm like, well, what do you do? You have to have a solution. There's no way you.
And they said, our labor is 30 cents an hour.
And they said it's cheaper for them to have one person ink than to think of like a different method to it, right? So and that was like I guess we thought it would be easier to think of a solution, but it's harder than we thought. But we are creative.
Well, the nice thing is
creative, to say the least. And once we figure it out, we figure it out.
Exactly.
You figure it out forever, and anytime you can almost anytime you can figure out a more technical solution to something like that, you get way better scaling anyways. So
even like our mold making process, like Will was using like a cake batter thing, and like he saw online like you like screw things in to make a mold thing. But like I designed our own like 3D printed like mold making system, and like there's no screwing in, you just put it in and it sticks together using like tension. And like I think it works really well. Like we also thought about maybe we should just make this as well as a product.
Sure.
Because like on top of the Dice Masters, we said like we could also go with the mold system. We know mold system's a little hot topic because of that failed Kickstarter. I don't know if you guys have heard the Regal mold system. I don't know if
I heard about it. I didn't follow it much, but I saw some of the backlash about it.
I was looking through the comments and it was giving me nightmares. I told them because like the comments are like the comments were scary. People were angry. I was like, guys, if this happens, I don't know what I'll do.
If I recall, it was a pretty expensive system too, which really I think plays into it a bit. That's super cool. I was wondering if you guys were doing 3D printing stuff. So resin 3D printing's so good these days.
Oh yeah, and we went a little overkill with our printer. So like we're actually able to like print like basically like I would say like 30-40 dice on our build plate at once.
Nice.
So it's like the process we're learning right now is actually making the file.
Yeah, right. Yeah. CAD design.
The resin printer is like the new printer, but Will had his own Prusa printer that wasn't working that I fixed. And I had my own printer that I also fixed.
We're getting a little fleet.
It's building it up. They're all very DIY.
I mean, well, again, like once you get something working on the 3D printing stuff, that's pretty much infinitely scalable. So that's always nice. Yeah. You looked like you had a question. No. Okay. All right.
I'm just quietly enjoying myself over here about dice.
All right. So how many? I'm curious. meant to ask this back when we were still sort of in the early days, but how many sort of designs do you think you went through before settling on actually like selling
the 16
yeah.
that we have? We probably tried like, I would say like 45, 50 different designs. Like, I mean,
that's not bad. That's a pretty good hit rate, actually.
Yeah, we had a wall in my garage where we would write it out, the ones we wanted. And if you look at that wall, only like one of them made it from that wall. We would write it out in a Sharpie on the drywall.
Nice.
But no, it was more so like once we hit something we knew we liked, it was more so it just required like a few more test runs to see like how to make it go to like the level we were happy with, right? Like our goal was a dice color palette or technique that would have like at least 1 out of 16 that someone would enjoy. Yeah. And so like I remember that our biggest thing towards the end was like we like grouped all our dice into the different colors we have. We're like, what are we missing? And it was really fun like brainstorming the ideas to like design them and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it on the liking at least one. So I'm curious actually. Not that you on camera can see this, but which one's this?
That's Withered Rose.
Oh, that is the rose. Oh yeah, okay.
So it's got the roses inside.
All right, I gotta take a look. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's the one that scares me the most.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I think it's the last one we're doing. Because we said, you know what, we'll just in a worst case, we can just send out every other order, and the roses will have to.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fair. It's your fault for ordering row. I actually didn't realize when I saw them on Instagram that they were real roses. Yeah. I assumed they were like plastic or like 3D printed or something. So
that would maybe have been easier, but no, they were unfortunately real dried roses.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty. They look like once you've got it in your hand, you can clearly tell that it's a real rose. So like at least you're not losing that. Yeah. But
we don't have them here, but we also have like the Corrupted Garden,
which is like an actual moss. That was actually our first design made by yours truly, not by William, but by myself. And actually, even further than our first design, it was the first dice I ever cast.
Oh.
And it was, but the first version of it was the one I told you looks like bacteria in a fish tank, because the first version of it, I put the green, I put the purple, and I put a bunch of green. I make the resin really green, and then you pull it out, and it just looks really gross. And but no, that was the first one we ever made, like the first one that ever made it to the final. Like, this is what we'll take, and that one's actually reindeer moss from BC. So like we tried to keep what we could here.
That's awesome.
Because like we just think like we do think like production in Canada is possible. It's harder, but like we do think like with a few more projects, like it's something that we could do here. Like, you know.
Yeah, well, I think you're taking the right tack, trying to figure out the clever way that other people aren't doing.
Yeah.
That's definitely how to make it work.
Yeah.
Just got to get all the robots. That's the key.
Yeah. That'll be the end game. They're really expensive.
$17 million worth of robots to make dice. Sorry, were you gonna jump in with something, Jason?
No. Well, I was gonna say, like, not only were they like the first dice that you guys designed, it was our first production run as well.
Oh yeah.
We threw out a lot of
Corrupted Garden, which was a bad first one to pick.
I was gonna say,
because you have to so for that one you pre-stuff the mold with the moss.
Oh, okay.
Because the moss is so like, it's like a web, so the resin just pours right through it.
Sure.
But that was the one where we were having all the issues: thick skirts, shifted faces, and then we're looking back and we're like, my God, because every time, and the moss is smelly.
Yeah,
it's not smelly once it's cast, but when you're putting it in,
it's like a really sharp vinegar.
He hates it. He hated it, and it dyes your fingers.
Yeah.
Lovely.
And but like we were like, we picked the worst one to learn on, because every day we spent, that one takes like an extra hour and a half, because every day you're stuffing like 15 molds with moss. You're ripping it up, you're adding glitter to it, and you're stuffing each one.
Yeah, that's wild. Why did you start with that one?
Yeah,
because we just didn't think about it. We're like just sometimes like we're just dumb.
Okay, well, yeah, that happens.
Sometimes when I say we've learned a lot.
Cool. I think we're pretty much at time. So if there's anything, I mean.
So I assume with the other projects coming, you've already got like creative juices flow in and ideas. And
we already have we even have like prototypes. One project in particular, we had the first it required a 3D artist to make something for us to print.
Okay.
And I have failed in printing it several times, so we're still trying to work that one out. And then we have some other we have some dice prototypes and stuff that have already been made, but we just don't want to devote too many resources to it yet. But they're there. Yeah. They're there. We're just waiting. We always see it. I always tell them because sometimes when we post pictures, we get messages on Instagram or Twitter, and they're like, well, when are you guys actually going to sell? Because a lot of people have found us after the Kickstarter. They're like, you guys keep posting. When are you going to sell? I go down to them. I'm like, guys, there is demand in the streets.
Yeah, well, I think you guys could probably get away with doing some drops, like you were saying. I don't think anyone. I mean, I don't want to try and talk for people,
it would be a drop of dice that we should just give to the Kickstarter backers, right? So
that's Well, then they can have 2 sets.
That's true. That's true. But we're getting there. Right now we're working on 2 of the most ordered ones, Odysseys and Moonlit, and once those are done, that's a big chunk, and then we're close-ish. The casting's the most time-consuming part. It's also the most error prone part, I imagine after that after that there still can be dice that you find out are defective, but the numbers much smaller. Well,
that's cool. Well, thanks so much for coming out.
No,
I think we'll stop there.
We'll do it again.
I was gonna say we'll have to do it again. It's once the Kickstarter, definitely once you're shipping and everything's good, we'll definitely do it again, and maybe we'll come out, and if you guys want, we'll film you doing some dice. Save you some of that time. So you don't have to do everything yourself.
That sounds great.
Cool. Thanks so much. We will drop all of the socials in the description if you're curious. You can go and drool over dice that you can't have yet. Anything else you guys want to drop before we leave?
No, thanks for having us. I had a fun time.
Thanks so much. And we'll catch you on the next one.